Welcome to Magnificat's program dedicated to providing news from the Church. Today is Wednesday, November 9th, 2022, and these are our news. The Pope has visited Bahrain and has insisted on the need for the great religions to form a united front for peace in the world. Cardinal Brenes has insisted on the Church's willingness to continue dialogue with the Sandinista government of Nicaragua. The number of Catholics continues to decline rapidly in Canada, although it is still the majority religion in most of the country. The killing of Christians in Nigeria continues unabated. This time it was a large group of Catholics in the center of the country who were killed. An Anglican bishop has called on those who do not accept the LGBT agenda to leave the church and form their own religious community. The Pope has paid a visit to Bahrain in the Persian Gulf to call on all the world's religions to unite in an effort to achieve peace in the world.
In his meeting with the Muslim Council of Elders, the Pope recalled that, in the face of the tragic scenarios that humanity is experiencing, where the chimeras of force and money prevail, religious leaders are called to remember that God and neighbor come first, and the only transcendence and fraternity save. The social and international economic and personal ills, as well as the dramatic environmental crisis that characterizes the present times for Pope Francis, stemmed from the estrangement from God and neighbor. And that is why he reiterated that prayer and fraternity are the humble and effective weapons of religions against those who feed war and the arms market. In the face of an increasingly wounded and torn humanity which, under the garb of globalizations, breathes with difficulty and fear, the great religions are called to be the heart that unites the members of the body, the soul that gives hope and life to the highest aspirations. They await the emergence of the dawn of light and peace. But for this to happen, the Pope said, one premise is indispensable: religious freedom. All coercion is unworthy of the Almighty, because he has not given the world to slaves, but to free creatures. Let us therefore commit ourselves to ensure that places of worship are protected and respected, always and everywhere, and that prayer is promoted and never hindered. But it is not enough to grant permissions and to recognize freedom of worship. True religion's freedom must be achieved. Every creed is called upon to examine itself on this. It is called upon to ask itself whether it compels from the outside or liberates God's creatures inwardly, whether it helps man to reject rigidity and violence.
The Archbishop of Managua, Cardinal Brenes, dialogue with the communist government must continue despite the persecution to which the Church is subjected.
The Archbishop of Managua, Cardinal Brenes, has said that dialogue with the government of President Ortega must never stop, despite the increase in tensions between the government and the Church in recent years, which have led to real persecution against the Church. The Gospel tells us that we must always pray for those who criticize us, for those who say things against us, and generally we seek to have a calm heart in the face of these things and pray. Dialogue should never stop. We have experienced that, the Cardinal said. Brenes also revealed that the Pope has encouraged Nicaragua's bishops to be messengers of reconciliation. He spoke of priests who have decided to go into exile after denouncing police siege of religious who have been expelled or refused entry to the country without the authorities explaining the reasons. We are trying to see what the world is asking of us. Why these priests have not been able to return to Nicaragua? Well, we are discovering. Perhaps the Lord is sending them on another mission, said the cardinal. At the moment in Nicaragua, there is one bishop under house arrest, another in exile, several priests in prison, and a large number of priests who have had to flee the country to avoid imprisonment or assassination. In addition, many lay people involved in pastoral work are also in prison.
There are fewer and fewer Catholics in Canada, and there is more and more anti-Catholic sentiment and attacks on the Church in the North America country.
Statistics Canada released the results of the 2021 population census on October 26th. Catholics have decreased by 2 million in the last 10 years, dropping to 10.9 million in 2021. This brings the percentage of Catholics in the country down to 29.9% of the total population. Not only are those who consider themselves Catholics decreasing, the number of those who identify themselves as Christians is also decreasing. In 2011, 67.3% of the population declared themselves to be Christians. In 2021, only 53.3% of the population, that is, 19.3 million people, did so. Even so, Catholicism is still the majority religion in almost all Canadian provinces, except in Anglican majority in Nunavut. Quebec remains majority Catholic, although it says a decline from 74.7% in 2011 to 53.8% in 2021. Religious practice has also declined. Just 20% of Canadians attend religious activities once a month. 2019 data. The previous figure from 1985 was 40%. Statistics show that hatred against Catholics increased by more than 260% between 2020 and 2021. People with no religious affiliation account for 34.6% of the population and 12.1% are non-Christians. 5% of Canadians are Muslim, a doubling since 2011. There are also 2.3% Hindus and 2.1% Sikhs. Youth numbers just 335,000, also a decrease.
Muslims in Nigeria continue to kill Christians. This time it is once again the Fulani who have killed a large group of Catholics.
This weekend, it was reported that a violent attack by Fulani Muslim herdsmen in Benue State, central Nigeria, on October 19 killed at least 71 Catholic villagers. At least 35 bodies were found after the attack, and 36 more bodies were later recovered in adjacent fields. Among the deaths were women and children, along with 2 policemen. State government officials visited the area after the attacks. They said that since the federal government is unable to stop the violence, it should provide weapons to citizens' defense group. We stand by our demand that the federal government should give us a license for our volunteer guards to carry AK-47s. The state government secretary said, "The security agencies have been overwhelmed and our people had to defend themselves."
The Anglican Bishop of Oxford has said that members of his church who do not accept the LGBT agenda should live and found their own church.
The Anglican Bishop of Oxford, Stephen Croft, has called for the Church of England to allow same-sex weddings, even if it means establishing an alternative episcopal structure from Anglicanism's conservative priests and parishes. What is at stake, says Croft, is the Church of England's claim to serve the whole of society. It is anti-LGBTQ stance. is leading to a radical dislocation between the Church of England and the culture and society we seek to serve. The College of Bishops met this week to discuss how the General Synod should decide the issue of same-sex marriage when it meets in February at the end of the long consultation and education process of living in love and faith. Croft is the only serving diocesan bishop who has stated his belief that clergy should be allowed to marry same-sex couples in church, and in turn be able to marry same-sex couples. At present, neither is allowed, although Anglican clergy can form same-sex partnerships on condition that they remain celibate. The Bishop of Oxford is also in favor of guaranteeing freedom of conscience for clergy and parishes that do not want to accept the LGBT thesis. For them, an independent ecclesial structure should be created, equivalent to a parallel church. The arguments of the Anglican Bishop of Oxford are virtually the same as those used by European Catholic bishops to demand that the Church accept homosexual relationships and bless them.
Our editorial this week is dedicated to reflecting on the influence of abortion on the Catholic vote.
For many years, an important part of the American Catholic hierarchy, and certainly a very important part of the Catholic voters, have said that abortion should not be taken into account, at least not in the first place, as an element that decides the vote of an election. This has been their thesis. It is said to have been promulgated, enunciated for the first time by the late Cardinal Bernardin, who was the Archbishop of Chicago. He elaborated, or would have elaborated, the thesis of the so-called seamless robe, that robe of Jesus Christ that was not divided when the soldiers cast lots for his spoils. According to this theory, the theory of the seamless tunic, the vote would not be decided on the basis of a single thing, but it was necessary to see the whole. How many things, how many elements enter in the political program of a party, and to value the whole. Abortion was, it will be one more element of those points that enter in the political program that is supported with the vote. One more element. The same as it would be one more element, for example, the policies of life or the policies of the family, the support to all the pro-LGBT thesis. One more element, and not the most element. There would be other positive points in that political program. I am referring to the Democrat Party, which is the great promoter of the abortion in the United States, that for those voters and for that hierarchy would justify supporting with a vote that party that is the promoter, among other things, of abortion. Well, the theory of the seamless tunic has served for decades to the bishops, some bishops and Catholics who have voted for that party to do so with a clear conscience. Abortion, they have repeated, and they have said it over and over again, has to be taken out of the political debate because we cannot make abortion the first issue, the essential issue when deciding our votes. And in the same way, they have said the communion of abortionists must also be taken out of the political debate. It is a private matter. This has been the song that has been sung by hierarchy and laity, neither all the hierarchy nor all the laity, for decades to justify voting for an abortionist party such as the Democratic Party. They have been saying the same thing. They believe it and have acted accordingly. But now it turns out that this political party, the Democrat Party, in the elections that are about to be held in the United States, have placed abortion as the essential issue of their campaign. The Republicans talk about the economy, they talk about abortion. Abortion is the decisive issue. That is to say, before abortion was secondary. It entered as one more thing, and at the same time of deciding the vote, as one more element. Not even the most important. Neither was the most important thing the defense of the family. None of those principles that Benedict XVI established as the so-called non-negotiable principles, life, family, the rights of parents to educate their children, those were secondary things, other elements in front of or together with others that made it possible to vote with a clear conscience for an abortionist party. But now I insist that this party has put it in the first place. It has made abortion the center of its campaign, to the point that the Catholic President Biden has said that abortion is an inalienable right, and that if he wins the elections, he will make it a federal law, and that no state will be able to refuse or prohibit the performance of abortions in its territory. He has even said that abortion will not have any kind of limits in any state, including the so-called abortion by decapitation, which is something even more monstrous, because the baby is being born, the little head comes out first, and at that moment they put a needle through the cerebrum and it is instantly dead. They finish taking the baby out of the mother's womb. The delivery is over, and they generally or frequently hand it over to the multinationals that have participated in this abortion, so that in many cases at least they can cut it up for the sale of organs or use it for experimentation, the abortion business. There is no doubt that Biden's decision has been enthusiastically welcomed, especially by those who make that business. I am referring, among others, to the pro-abortion multinational Planned Parenthood. A president who calls himself a Catholic, who boasts of being a Catholic, who receives communion, a president who says that abortion is the essence of his program, moreover, goes so far as to say that abortion must be chosen because democracy must be saved, and that it is democracy that is at risk because abortion can be suppressed, can be at least partially banned. Democracy for this party and for its president, democracy is essentially linked to the right to abortion. Abortion is a right that cannot have any kind of limit, any kind of restriction. Fortunately, thank God there are still in the United States bishops consistent with the Catholic faith, and also lay people consistent with the Catholic faith. Fortunately, because, for example, Monsignor Chaput, who has been until recently, Archbishop of Philadelphia, has not hesitated to say that Biden is an apostate. He has said so, and the bishop who make up the pro-life commission of the American Bishops' Conference have said that this extreme radicalism, also referring to Biden, this dangerous radicalism. And what are they going to do now? All those who have been singing the song that abortion is a secondary issue, that it should not be taken into account in deciding the vote, what are they going to do now? When the party they love above God because their party comes first, what are they going to do now when their party says that abortion is the essential and most important thing? If it is true that it is the essential and most important thing, it will have to be taken into account as essential and the most important thing when deciding the vote. They will have to be consistent. I imagine that they will have a great consternation after saying for years that it is a secondary thing, to see that the party they adore has made abortion the most important thing. And what are they going to do now? Will they say that it is not the most important thing and that it should not influence their vote when the party they vote for and for which they claim to vote, when the party has said that yes, it is the most important thing? I imagine they will be backed into a corner, not knowing what to say in the face of this change of the Democratic Party. Possibly, I am sure, the most radical will continue to vote for the Democratic Party because they do not really care about the abortion issue and the issue of the family rights. They do not really care. Because first it is their party, and then comes God and all other things, if God even comes after that. But I am also sure that there are others who are not so radical, who are not so extremist, and who will realize that abortion is not just one more element along with others, immigration, ecology, but that abortion comes first. The Democrat Party is right, because the first thing is the right to life. Then comes all the other rights, but the first thing is the right to life. The President Biden is right when he says that democracy is at stake. He is right because a democracy that is based on the right to kill an innocent and unborn child who is not guilty of anything, a democracy that is based on that is not a true democracy. St. John Paul II said it, Benedict XVI said it, and on many occasions Pope Francis has also said it. A democracy based on the right to kill the innocent is a dead democracy. It is a false democracy. So it is true indeed, abortion has to occupy the first place in the political debate as a Democrat. And indeed, the one who votes for abortion, contrary to what the American Democrat Party says in this case, the one who votes for abortion is the one who is endangering democracy. Democracy is at stake, certainly, and democracy will be saved only if those rights that cannot be at the mercy of political interest are defended, and the first of these rights is the right to life. I pray for the United States. The elections in the United States are decisive for the rest of humanity. It is not only a local issue, it is not a national issue. The United States devotes many millions to promote abortion in the rest of the world. It even influences in a decisive way the policies that the United Nations is trying to implement. I pray that the right to life triumphs in the United States, so that Catholics do not collaborate with the apostasy of denying the primacy of the life of the innocent above any other interest. I pray for the United States, and I ask American Catholics to obey the Church, to obey our Lord Jesus Christ, to obey the God of life, and not to collaborate with their vote with the enemy of the God of life, which is the devil, who only seeks the death of the innocent and of humanity. See you next week, God willing.
If you wish to keep up to date with what is happening in the Church, you can do so on our news page, www.magnificat.tv. See you next week, God willing.